All right, Utah here, and I want to go over some of the basics of setting up a sluice. The first place is you want a spot with gold, obviously, and bends of rivers are really good. If you're on a big river, you want the inside bend of the river. Sorry. In this case, if we look upstream, this isn't the inside bend of the river. We're right at the bottom end of a bend, and the line of gold will tend to follow will be to that inside bend of the river, and then a fairly straight path to the inside bend of the next. So what I'm trying to do is kind of cut the corner on the S, so to speak, and I'm actually on the line of gold just below the turn. And we can see the gravel bar behind me. That's indicative of a gravel deposit, and that's where you want to look for gold. All right, second thing you want the sluice to be as close to the gravel you're going to work as possible. In this case, I'm going to work this gravel bar right here, right next to the river. So I put the sluice right next to it. Now you're going to have some limiting factors. In this case, the main flow of the water is further away than I'd like, and it's too deep for a sluice. But right here I find a nice lip where I can get about 6 inches of elevation change. So I broke a hole in that little rock dam and put the sluice there. Second thing, we want to get the sluice as close to the working gravels as we want. And this is the gravel I'm going to work right here. The general principle is the closer I can get the sluice to the dirt, the more material I can put through, because I spend more time shoveling and less time walking back and forth. Now in this particular case, the main flow of water is way over there, so I'm actually bringing the river to me, so to speak, and I'm going to dig some in the head of the sluice here and establish a nice channel. We'll get a good flow of water that'll come through the sluice box and out the bottom end here. And I will also move a couple of these rocks so that I have a good channel for the waste material to flow easily through. And that will allow us to get a good flow of water near the work area. And we should be able to get quite a bit of material pushed through here. Now the other thing we're going to work on is actually getting the proper balance and flow of water through the sluice. Once we get a good flow, you'll actually see a V leaving the head of that sluice and coming down into the box, and a shovel full of material will actually blow through with the heavy stuff very slowly just tumbling through. And it'll take me a few minutes to get that set up, and then we'll show what that looks like. All right, so it's been about a half an hour. I've taken all the rocks and gravel that were in this high spot and just thrown it over to the left. And there's a lot of rock in that, and we used it to build kind of a V and built out. I also just shoveled a little bit of it through, and it actually filled in the low spot at the head of that sluice box. There was a gap at the front. And by doing that, I just shoveled it right to that front edge, and about half of it went through the box, the other half actually closed the gap. So it made it a real easy way to seal the front end off. Then I came down here to the bottom, and I moved some of these boulders out of the way so we can get a better flow of water through. And been able to make kind of a nice, good, close area to this sandbar where I can shovel and just set it right into the sluice box. All right, one thing we want to look for as we look at this box, you can see a nice V forming right here in the center of the box. That's a pretty good setup for sluicing. And I'll go ahead and shovel a little bit of gravel in right now, and we'll just watch it flow through, and you'll see how the light stuff blows off real quick and the heavier stuff kind of drags its way through. I'll just bring some gravel from the head there. You can see the material's feeding through pretty well. A couple of these bigger rocks are hanging up. If we can actually get it into the current, it's enough to blow it through. And I'll throw most of my shovels right here somewhere. So now I'm actually going to work in the creek. And I love sluices because I think they're actually very efficient machines. I can do a lot really, really fast. I can move a lot of material in a fast, efficient manner. I don't have any fuel costs. There's no moving parts, nothing to break down. So sluice is actually probably my preferred way of working. And the easiest way, particularly if you're working in a stream, is to work into the current and work upstream. And that way any material you disturb will actually fall back into your own hole, and it will just kind of feed itself. One little trick I've learned is some of this stuff can be very hard to dig in. If you just step on the shovel, you're not going anywhere. So what I tend to do is I wiggle my way down. But once I get in the ground, I actually put my foot down and plant my heel. And then I use the shovel handle as a lever against my foot. And that allows me to get a good bite on the material. Now at this point, I usually chalk out. I will usually throw away any large rocks. And the rest of the material we can just dump in the sluice box. And we'll see that's actually a really good feed. It will very slowly push it into the riffles. Once it gets about a foot down those riffles, the current catches it, and it'll just push those rocks and light stuff out. The heavy stuff still tumbles. And that's a pretty good sluice setup. We'll go ahead and work it for a little while, and we'll come back and see what we've got. All right, so I've been working for an hour, maybe an hour and a half. I've opened a hole right through here. We're probably 8 inches or a foot deep from where we started, probably about a foot. Right through the center area here, I actually found a pretty nice layer of black sand. 2 inches of clay that was just chock full of black sand. 2 sample pans from there, each contained a nice flake. Nothing big, but it showed that there definitely is gold here. And you can also see, as I've been working, I've put all the material up there, it's washed through down here. We've got a buildup of sediment right here. And that's something that we gotta kind of clean up, and all this obstructions here will keep the sand and the rocks from pushing through and start to build up on the sluice box. So I'm gonna go through and knock that out real quick. Another thing to look at, the lower right hand side of the box has settled. And so you look at the water level is slightly above the edge of the sluice on the right and just below it on the left. And if we look inside the box, you can see that the rocks below the riffles there's a thicker band of them to the right side, both indications that the sluice isn't quite level. Ideally you want a nice level sluice. This one's not far off of level. I think we'll do okay. And I'm actually going to pull that out and clean it up. If I were going to keep going, I would get in and level that a little bit. All right, so I've been working for about an hour and a half. I've cleaned out a nice hole right here, and I'm about ready to clean up the sluice box. We'll see if there's any gold here. And I'm expecting not great gold, but I will get gold in this sluice box. I've done a couple of test pans. 2 of them have showed some pretty nice flakes. I took them out of a nice black sand layer. And so there is gold in the box, and we'll go ahead and pan it down now and see what we're getting.